Alright, we're still in this volume 3, and we're at part 1, story 7, Flowers on a Stick. I kind of like this story too. The Okay, that kind of confused me. Okay, part 1, story 7, Flower on a Stick. The Great Rebellion was over. Nearly 15,000 people had died in the plague, besides the 250 leaders who had been burnt by fire, and the families of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, who had disappeared when the earth opened up and swallowed them, and the rest were badly frightened and thankful to be alive. The trouble had broken out because somebody was so disappointed at being told they could not go into Canaan for another 40 years. But it had been brewing for a long time. It may well have been that for a moment Aaron was made high priest. His cousin Korah had been jealous of him, but talking against Aaron and the other Levites, he had thought he might someday get his job. So with Dathan and Abram, they had been jealous of Moses because he was the leader and they were not. So they too had stirred up strife till open rebellion broke out. Now they were gone, but had those who spread learned their lessons? Were they all agreed now that God wanted Moses and Aaron to leave them? It looked like it for a moment, but who could be quite sure? Because so many Levites had been surely severely punished, perhaps many were wondering whether God had rejected them as custodians of the tabernacle. With help to make his wishes plain, God told Moses to tell the leaders of the 12 tribes to come to the tabernacle. Each was to bring a rod with him, a long stick men carried in those days when they went walking. The 12 men came as ordered. Aaron was with them as head of the tribe of Levi. Being the most important men of the camp, they must have wondered why Moses had sent for them. No doubt they suspected it might be something to do with the sad events in the past few days. Imagine to their surprise when Moses asked them to hand him their rods. Whatever could he want with them? Each leader handed over his rod. Moses carefully wrote the man's name on it before placing it with the other rods. Oh, yeah. So he wrote everybody's name and their tribe of who's going to be a part. And these sticks were not necessarily green. Green meaning they could grow things. So these sticks were actually dead. They've probably been dead for many, 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 many. Dried and just enough so that the old people could put their weight on her for a walking stick. Okay? This may have taken quite some time, and meanwhile the 12 men wondered what is going to happen next. When all 12 names had been written on the 12 rods so clearly that there could be no possible mistake, Moses gathered the rods in his arms and carried them into the tabernacle. When he came out again, he told them they could go now, but they were to come back the next day. Then God would show them by miracle which of the 12 tribes he had chosen to conduct the service of the sanctuary and which man he had chosen leader. The sign would be a blooming of the man's rod. There would be buds and flowers on a dry old stick. Ooh, interesting. Rodless and excited, the 12 returned to their tents. Some of them probably were limping. I mean, that's my imagination. Because these guys are older. And, well, some of them could be limping, some of them couldn't. It's just a walking stick. Probably something they had because Jacob had it. A staff. Well, it's a lot of things. Because if I'm okay, I'm getting all my stories are coming together and making sense to me. Okay, let's get back to the story. Rodless and excited, the 12 returned to their tents. Perhaps they thought God was going to make a change in leadership of Israel, and this was his way of telling them someone other than Aaron might be the high priest tomorrow. Which one would it be? As they went to their way, people must have noticed that they had no rods. Where have you lost your rod? They asked. No, we had left them at the tabernacle, they replied. We are waiting to see which one of them will bloom and bear fruit. Yeah, that's another thing. It would actually bear fruit, have a flower, and then fruit also. The next morning, and they're in the desert, so these things are not going to grow. And anybody with common sense, no, they ain't going to grow. Because there ain't no water, and there's no good soil to put it, and the thing's probably, last time it was cut was 40, 30, 50 years before, or 100 years before. Okay, make a dry guess and get back to the story. The next morning, there was quite a crowd at the tabernacle to learn the results, which, if any, of the 12 rods had bloomed. When the 12 leaders arrived, Moses went into the tabernacle. Even he was surprised at what he saw. For one of the rods had not only bud and bloom, but it produced ripe almonds as well. And it probably was not even an almond stick in the first place. Think about it. He brought the 12 rods outside. You can imagine how astonished everybody was when they saw that one of the rods had turned into a tree overnight. So it was a tree. Whose rod is this? They cried. Come and see, said Moses. And the 12 men passed, pressing eagerly forward. Then they saw the name. It was quite clear and unmistakable despite all the blooms and the almonds around it. Aaron, they said as one man. So all together they said Aaron. So, or Aaron. Bad joke. Okay, sorry. That's for some of y'all. So there was to be no change in leadership after all, and they were all satisfied, for there could be no doubt that God had spoken clearly. He still wanted the tribe of Levi to care for the tabernacle, and Aaron to be the high priest. Aaron, by the way, was the only man who didn't get his rod back, for God told Moses to take it into the tabernacle and keep it for a token against rebels, and to quite take away their murmurings. And it was taken away, and it did take away their murmurings for a while, but not for very long. All too soon they were grumbling again. And then it has a picture of Moses with it. And that's just me saying that it probably wouldn't even, the stick in the first place, wouldn't even an almond stick. And you got to think, they've been in the desert for a while. And that was part 1, story 7. And we're going to break. And yeah, I'll just look at the thing on this. Yeah, this is just a retelling of the other book. More, besides the highlights, this has a different one. So this is just a retelling of the other book, which is basically what Deuteronomy means anyway. Alright, 2 minutes.